6:30. We have a quorum. We'll call a planning board meeting to order. Happy New Year, everybody. The second day of the year. And first up for general information, Mr. Dwyer, do we have anybody?
We have no one.
We have no one. Okay, well, I guess until it's 6:45, we can at least get going on. I sent out, well, we've got a couple of things. I don't know if Dave Phil is going to show up or not for his the thing was sent around on his Middle Street Isabel Court question.
Yeah, is there any restriction on creating a landlocked lot? I mean, I've seen other ones in town.
He is creating a landlocked property at the time being, but he owns
The adjacent, yeah.
3 properties that touch it. And his
Yeah.
ultimate plan is to take that property that is currently part of the Isabel Court property and give it to one of the 2 properties on Middle Street.
Yeah.
So,
The
So there's
only
no-
restriction on creating a landlocked parcel is that if you sell someone a landlocked parcel,
You have to provide
can
an easement or
construe
right
with-
away.
you've and if you don't provide a right of way, it can be construed as a way of necessity. However, you can sell your frontage and landlock yourself, and you're out of luck. So,
okay.
Note to self,
Yeah.
when I have extra property, not to do that.
That's the one on Isabel Court. I mean, the one he's doing be on the, if you would, on the west side
Right.
of Middle Street, where he
That
has
was-
2 or
was-
3 properties. He asked me a couple of questions about that, and I says, I'm not sure. I says, he's best if he shows up to explain what he wants to do on the west side of Middle Street, because the east side is pretty cut and clear. He's creating a landlocked property. The property he's cutting it off of will still be more than large enough for the aquifer region, aquifer district. There'll be over 40,000 square feet, so et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he had some questions on the west side one that I wasn't quite sure how to answer. So it's
That
best
was-
if we put it before the board and we can look at it.
That was
Also,
215,
I
I
sent
think.
around, although it was kind of late, some requirements of going for the solar, or not the solar, but the energy storage. And that would be part of the solar bylaw. And it's not in, like I said, I sent it around, it's not in motion form by any stretch. But what I really want to look at is the requirements and considerations section to see if that is okay with everybody. And if it is, then I will, because there's going to have to be a whole bunch of small motions or changes to various wordings to incorporate this into the solar bylaw. So Mark pointed out a good point, that in the very beginning of the section, it says requirements, consideration for energy storage systems shall include, and then it goes through and it says shall comply. A couple of them look like they should be 25 or 28, 5.4.3.11. Looks like it is a incomplete item. But
Yeah.
when you take it with the first shall include, it makes sense. But when you put shall include with a lot of the other ones, they don't make sense.
Hmm.
So I've said, we'll take out my proposal. Instead of saying shall include, it simply will be shall. And I will reword 23.11 to be fire prevention controls shall be provided or installed specifically for on-site availability to prevent, control, and or extinguish any fire. That was a good catch, Mark, because when I was reading it afterwards, various sections made sense when you put it together and others did not.
Well, I just wondered if there should be a standard in there, like if Chief Spanknebel says it should be NFPA something or to his approval or,
Yep, the very first section is shall comply with NFPA 55 as amended. And
Okay.
those, I asked him specifically which NFPA it is pertains to, and he said that's the one. I
okay,
didn't put anything about the electrical code or building code because obviously it has to comply with those guys.
right, right.
Yeah, I would maybe want to just check back with Mike about whether the NIPA, whether I know you said as amended, but do they ever get renumbered?
I don't know. They're
Um,
probably, I don't know if the fire codes are the same as building codes are re-released every 3 years. And sometimes they do reshuffle things. I don't know if they,
that's a good point, but I will ask Mike that one.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't, I mean,
Yeah, just
PA 55 is a number he gave me, but do they change? That's a good question.
And Bill and Jim, you saw the chat comment?
yeah, that's relating to the upcoming meeting,
Yep.
upcoming public
Yep.
hearing, not
Yep.
related to this.
Right.
Because I know we went through something similar with that with the list of prohibited substances in the Aquifer Protection District, and we relate to whatever CFR it was.
CMR 13.
You know, we want to be careful not to tie this to something that could change and have to go back to town meeting to amend the bylaw to.
Well, kind of that was the purpose of the, for putting in the state regulations, because we didn't want to have to list everything that was prohibited in the Aquifer Protection District. So by saying it was going to be, what is it, MGL 21C, if I can recall, something like that, they would do that would be more inclusive.
But
Yeah,
Mark,
so
to your comment, we cannot make it so granular as to say subject to the approval of the fire chief.
okay.
We can incorporate by reference state law,
Okay.
but we're supposed to, when we're setting up a special permit, we're supposed to be the ultimate authority on it, subject to whatever else we put in.
Okay.
So if we put in, you know, obviously we listen to the fire chief and can exercise some discretion in a special permit
Okay.
to the concerns he raises.
Yeah.
But in the special permit process, we can't give a third party a veto.
Okay.
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 Now, is this going to be limiting the aquifer? Is it not going to be allowed in the aquifer protection area?
It's going to be allowed wherever solar panels are allowed.
Now,
Including your backyard, Jimmy, no problem?
Including my backyard.
well,
There's not enough room to put in my backyard.
I know, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
I was
but-
reading about lithium fires today and they burn out at about 1,000 degrees centigrade.
Yep.
And if you put water on them, they create this noxious gas, which a gas obviously can float in the atmosphere. And, you know, I just don't want to risk wiping out 35,000 students at UMass.
Right. I mean, I wonder if it makes sense to limit the size of it. You know, if you use the smaller size, if it's in
Yeah.
sensitive.
Well, I
zone.
don't know if that matters.
Yeah.
What
Maybe-
size could not create a noxious cloud
Maybe
of hydrogen
PVC can help.
chloride, lithium hydrogen gas that floats all over the area. I just don't want another Love Canal here.
Is that something that we could ask Ken or PVPC?
Well, in a nutshell, any lithium battery fire creates noxious gas, even an automobile,
Yeah,
okay? How much does it take to create a cloud? I don't think anybody can answer that for the simple reason that it depends on so many things.
well, I'm just thinking if you're against plastic bags, you might think twice about this.
Well, the problem is we can't prohibit this.
I
Well,
know.
the problem is, Jimmy, though, it runs into direct conflict with the Aquifer Protection District. If we're putting batteries and that could potentially leak and screw up the water supply, that's the way you can prohibit it in certain areas. Seems to be what we're all aiming at a little bit here.
Well, that
burden-
might be possible, except Hadley has so much aquifer area that when they take a look at it, they may say that now we are overly, I don't know. I'm just making a comment there.
Yeah.
Would
Yeah.
the state look at it and say that it's so restricted because of the size of the aquifer? You know, one of the things that I've tried to do here is put in spill control so that nothing can spill onto the ground.
Right.
Everything that
But-
has a liquid, including a battery, has to have spill containment.
Until it spills on the ground. I think we should ask for corings of the site to, we've got the aquifer protection area, and that's an old, I think, geologic study. I'm not sure how precise it is, but I think we should ask for a geologic coring of, say, the 300 feet around this area to see what the geology really is. We don't know.
That could create more problems than it addresses, Mike, for the simple reason when you start putting that many holes in the ground and you poke into the aquifer, you might be creating points of contamination.
Higher
I'm
risk.
talking, something like this.
That has been measured, the
Yeah.
aquifer protection area, so that it is a defined area.
Well, yeah, the aquifer protection has been measured, but we don't know what the geology is below what these solar battery or the battery sites are. I don't want to call them solar battery sites because 90% is coming from the grid. We don't know what the geology is below these things. We don't know what this thing is feeding into. Is there an underground permeable rock that's going to feed into the river? We don't know. Look at the sand pit clearly from recent geologic times, say 20,000 years ago, there was a stream there, and that's why you got a gravel pit.
That may be true, but I still say that you start poking that many holes in the ground, you create more problems than you address. Because you're making points of potential contamination.
But my point is, the place where they're proposing the setting of these batteries is not the aquifer protection area. But what is below that area is my question. What type of rock is below there? Where's the base rock? Are these sedimentary rocks above it? Is contamination going to be able to flow through to, say, as I said earlier, the river? I don't know. And I'm just thinking about something that Pete Foose taught me in Geology 11 at Amherst College. Something, finally came in handy way back when. They had a real problem with the Amherst landfill because stuff leached through there and it ended up someplace where nobody knew it was going to end up. And that's a possibility here. And we've got to look at it, especially given the toxicity of these metals when they're in gaseous form. That's my say. I'll vote for it. I vote for this bylaw in whatever form it is, but I hope town meeting votes against it. Like I said, if you're against plastic bags, you probably should be against this.
Well, it's pretty much 6:45. So I guess we can get going with the continuation of the public hearing for In the Green Gardens. And Mr. Viano is here. What's his name? The other abutter going to be showing up, do we know?
Yes, he's under Kimberly. Claremont.
Kimberly, yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yep, I'm here.
that's Paul.
Mhm.
Okay, I would like to make one little statement to make sure everybody understands this. That site plan approval is a special permit process. Route 9 is designated business zone on each side, the length of Route 9, various depths throughout. And the use Mr. Viano is doing is a permitted use in a permitted zone. We cannot stop the permitted use in a permitted zone. All we can do is regulate it by site plan approval, providing that it complies with zoning. The special permit process of site plan approval is not a special permit, whether or not it's a permitted use. It really has to do, going back years, that if it's appealed, instead of being appealed to the building inspector and the ZBA, which is a convoluted process, it is appealed if such is desired or occurs to the courts. There's a 20-day appeal period from the time of filing with the planning board when they register the approval, and or not approval as the case may be, and the parties may appeal to the courts. It is not that the planning board can say no to the allowed use in a permitted zone. We're really looking at the zoning prospects of this. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page so that they don't think we have more authority than we do. Okay, Mr. Viano.
Great, thank you. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas to everybody. So I took notes from last meeting. I have a ton of notes with me tonight. I did some research. I made some calls. I did some looking around and everything. And I searched for an engineer, as you guys asked, to come, or civil engineer to come out to the site. I did have some trouble finding an engineer, just because I explained the situation to all the engineers that I talked to. I talked to a few different local companies, and they said that from what it sounded like, it was just something that they were either too busy or they didn't want to take part in it, just because it was kind of it was more of a neighborhood dispute, is what their take was on it. However, I was able to get in touch with a private consultant that does that's a wetland field agent that actually that has a lot of knowledge, which was exciting. And what I found from meeting with her, I know that there was talk about a wetland/drainage survey. She said that they don't do them between December 1st and April 1st, just because of the frozen ground and the way and the foliage and plant cover that might manipulate water movement through a site or to a site. That being said, I asked her about a drainage survey comparatively to how we were talking about a potential survey with a civil engineer, and how that goes about. She was saying that that the drainage survey is more of something where that she would have to do also during that outside of the or outside of this season, to be able to really be able to pinpoint where the water might be going and how it moves across the property. In terms of, let's see here. So in terms of doing any wetlands delineations, because the wetlands were asking to be, or the conservation was asking to be involved in this. What ended up happening was, or what she was saying was, that since the property is not, or the property that contains the wetlands is not on my property, and if we don't have permission to then go ahead and delineate the wetlands boundary, then we have to go off of the Mass GIS. Going off of the Mass Map or Mass GIS, it shows that the property is outside of their jurisdiction zone. And I was also asking her as well as the qualifications that it would take for delineation. And what I found was that I would also, I would be able to delineate my own wetlands as well if we needed to. I have the appropriate degrees and schooling to be able to do that as needed as well. Speaking again on the soil movement within the property, I did want to just reference, let's see, I have it written. I have it right here. I just wanted to reference the town code in terms of removal of earth products. So that would be section 9.4.1, that the moving of earth project or the moving of earth products within the limits of an individual property or series of contiguous properties of land in single ownership, provided that no such moving shall take place across or within a street, does not require any special permit. So that was something that was a talking point at the last meeting, to where that I did originally, before we restored any grades on the property, we did move the grades to ease with parking and movement throughout the property. But however, we did restore those to the bottom of the fences as asked. And then I also talked to my landlord as well, and the catch basin that Paul was referencing is actually on the property that I rent. So that's was given to him through an easement, and the easement is a drainage easement. So I haven't been able to get a copy of the actual easement, but though I would assume that has, or I was told that has something to do with also moving water on this property as well. I wasn't around when that went in. That was in the early 2000s, as far as I know. But that's really what I have for everybody right now. Any other questions or anything?
So have you been in touch with the Hadley Conservation Commission to schedule any kind of a walkthrough yet with that?
I haven't scheduled a walkthrough, but I see Kayla's here, but I definitely would be happy to.
Yeah, we have a meeting on this upcoming Tuesday if you want to come to the meeting and share that with the commission. I guess I'm wondering about the drainage study. So I think at least I've noticed that the ground hasn't really frozen over so much, and it's been pretty rainy. So I guess it depends what the planning board requires. But yeah, if you're not within the wetland buffer zone, then there's no Conservation Commission jurisdiction unless sediment from your property is entering the catch basin, which is going into the wetland. So if we don't know that, we can't really determine whether or not the commission you would have to file with the Conservation Commission.
So were you able to get any kind of a engineer to look at the drainage on the site?
I wasn't able to get somebody out here.
Who did you contact?
I contacted, the first was Berkshire Design Group, and then the next one was, what's his name? Proterra in Hadley here. And that was when and then I also contacted, there was another one that was in Amherst, forget the name of them. That was in downtown Amherst. And that's when I kind of started to start more or less looking elsewhere as well to find either I was looking for somebody that was almost a private consultant that would then maybe have other contacts to be able to help get somebody out here. But
Well, you might tell them if they told you that they don't want to get involved in a property dispute, that is probably not the case. It's not something in which the town has an interest. Okay.
Well, I did get a call from Chris Chamberlain, I think it was, from Berkshire Design, who did not understand what exactly we were looking for at first. He talked with me before I got back to him. He told me he had actually watched the YouTube of our last meeting, so he had a sense of what was there. But I got the impression that getting to this with his resources was going to be a problem.
There's also Bucky Sparkle, right? I think he's over in the Northampton area. I'm not sure. I think he did the Banyas project on South Maple.
All I can encourage you to do is keep looking, Mr. Viano.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll see if I can find somebody maybe from a little bit further out. That's not exactly in
Try to
the.
Find somebody. And if they have questions on what exactly we're looking for, and Mr. Dwyer or maybe myself they could have them contact one of us. They might be a bit more clear so that they're really not getting involved in an issue between property owners. We're just trying to find out the lay of your property.
Mhm.
Okay. Other questions of the board? Comments?
Jim, could we be clear? This is an allowable business in this district, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so now we're just onto something else. I just want to make sure that that's clear.
So, Steve, I just want to comment on your second point about the earth removal bylaw.
Mhm.
This isn't really about an earth removal special permit that you're asking for. You don't need a special permit to move the dirt around, but you cannot cause a problem for your neighbors by moving it. That's a completely different issue. And I think that is the question before us. Has the contour of the property you are located on been changed to create a problem for the abutters that you could reasonably be asked to cure? So it's fine. We all agree you don't need a special permit to move dirt on your own property, but you can't cause a nuisance when you do it.
Right.
Of course.
You can't change drainage patterns to have a worse impact on your abutters. Which is what I think was being claimed by the abutters, but I don't know that we have any factual, I don't know if we have grading plans from before. So it's kind of a he said, she said.
I could ask, well, since it was so long ago when the property was purchased, so I know sometimes when they do the property purchase, that in there's sometimes a gradation map of the property when the bank does their assessment. I can ask my landlord and see if they have one. That might be something that's helpful.
That would be great. Yeah, if you have anything like that, especially in history.
Okay, historical property grade map.
Have you progressed any further, or was there a need to progress any further in basically straightening the property up, cleaning up any debris?
So I've been working there, or I work at the property every single day. Just keep on making everything more and more and more neat. I mean, we're just actually right now we're on our last really steps here, just cleaning up our equipment and getting everything ready to go for the winter. But though there really won't be much. I ended up getting back late from where we were working today, but I wanted to take a drone shot for you guys of what everything does look like or will look like for the winter here at the property. And there's not going to be very much equipment, or if anything, here because we have land clearing projects that will keep us busy throughout the winter in addition to all of our snow removal.
Okay.
Jim, Bill, I think I've heard in the past a request from the abutters that the fence has deteriorated and they'd like to see it repaired. Do we have any agency to ask the landlord to bring his fence to a certain standard, or is that a neighbor issue?
Well, is Bill going to answer it, or Jim, or in the past, we have often asked for a fence, and when the abutters are concerned about the what's going on the property, they said it just looks like we would not rather see it every day, all day long. So we would require a fence, and that could be part of the permitting process that we will give him, and so then he would have to maintain the fence. But
the bylaw calls.
The only go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, the bylaw calls in part for screening. But when you're talking about screening among 3 business properties, how you do it is sort of an open question. There's no specific requirement for a fence per se.
Right.
And, I note I've driven into Paul's property, and he has a line of arborvitae for screening, which in turn means there's only one spot where you can see where the fence is down. Whether it would be wise for the protection of Steve's equipment, etc., to have an intact fence for security, for safety, for keeping wandering people out of what's called an attractive nuisance. There might be good reasons for having a fence, but it's not an ironclad requirement one way or the other.
I would want to just comment on that. So I do plan on putting those 5 or 6 panels in there. That's just on my list for this week to get that done.
Okay.
So I feel like we're kind of going around in circles here.
Exactly right.
And on the one hand, I am sensitive to the requirement that Steve, as the applicant, should prove that he is not being a nuisance or won't be a bother to his business neighbors. And I'm glad we're getting some more information here. Ideally, the inability to obtain professional advice from Berkshire Design or Proterra or whoever should have been on your radar a year and a half ago when you were looking at whether this was a place you wanted to rent. And if you couldn't get the professional sign off on it, that was sort of a due diligence red flag. But we're here. And at the same time, I don't know whether if I turn to Lisa or Paul, if we have the pictures. Unfortunately, I don't think we're really equipped to understand all the hydrogeology of the site, and this might be a window of opportunity for you. You do not have the burden of proving the project is going to be a good neighbor, but there's an opportunity to go out and get some professional evaluation. For whatever reason, Steve is having trouble answering our questions, but maybe I'm not telling you this is something you have to do, but I just wonder if it's something you might not want to do to strengthen your position here. I'll just pass that along for whatever it's worth.
And, we're requesting this in good faith. We're not trying to put you through the ringer. If you can't respond, then.
We don't even have a site plan of the site before us. Where are the buildings? There's a trailer that's there. Was that allowed in the past? Not allowed in the past. How big is the building? If it's 1,000 square feet, maybe it doesn't even need site plan. We need some more precise information.
I think the point we're at is, as Dr. Z said, we're not trying to put you out of business, but we can't really give you a green light to keep on doing what you're doing. And I don't know if you're talking about maybe needing 3 months before you can get someone to evaluate the wetlands and the water flow. I would suspect that getting your neighbor's permission to do wetlands evaluation on the abutting property is not going to be a problem, because I think he shares everyone's interest in defining where the wetlands are. But I don't know if we're, talking about a 3-month continuance here. I really don't know where to go next.
Yeah.
I don't want to flat out say, okay, never mind, go ahead. Do what you've been doing. If we write that up, the neighbors will probably appeal it. On the other hand, if we say, you just haven't proven that you belong there, and file that, will probably take it to court. So we don't want to go there. That would be a few years with no real resolution. So we'd like to get this resolved, but I'm kind of at a loss as to what would.
Well, Steve, do you have a lawyer representing you? Do you have a lawyer that represents your corporation?
I do have a lawyer that represents us when needed. Yep.
I think if you talk to him, he might be able to find you somebody rather than you trying to call everybody here and there and everywhere.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's probably good advice, or at least he can help you.
Yeah,
Suggest,
because like we said, we're going around and around in the circles. This is probably the 5th or 6th time you've been before us.
we
And,
try not to suggest using various entities for different things because it looks like we're prejudiced or towards one or the other. So that's why we try to keep our comments more generic and not suggest, well, you should use this one or this one or this one, because obvious reasons that could be deemed as not good politics.
Mhm.
We don't want to get there. But if you talk to your attorney, he can probably give you some more solid advice, suggestions.
Definitely. All right, great. Yeah, I'll definitely give him a call.
I'll put that at the top of the list.
Yeah, no problem. I'll get in touch with him first thing tomorrow morning.
I would like to speak if I could.
Absolutely.
I'm Paul Zaradnik. I own the property next to this property, Hadley Park Plaza at 245 Russell Street. Just for the record, the drainage basin that is on my property is not on Stacia Roy's property. I would not spend the money and put that basin on her property. She does not have a drainage easement. I have a clearing and cutting easement onto her property that was given to me 20 years ago to cut trees down and grade onto her property when I was building the rear building at Hadley Park Plaza. That is the only easement that we have in common. There is no drainage easement onto my property. She gave me an easement to clear trees in the backyard and grade it so it would all look like one nice property. It's my wetland study map, granted it was done almost 20 years ago, clearly shows 1/3 of the backyard of this property in the aquifer, 100-foot buffer zone. That you folks probably have that record, or if you needed a copy of that, I'd be happy to furnish it. Not that much has changed in the last 20 years. So probably at least 1/4 to 1/3 of it is in the 100-foot buffer zone. He was instructed by the Conservation Commission to have a wetland study done before they could proceed forward. And so he does need to follow through with that, because there is concerns of the drainage, stormwater going onto my property and Lisa's property also. And it really should be addressed. Because he keeps trucks there with sodium chloride in them for treating driveways and that sort of thing. There could be chemicals in reference to the landscaping business, pesticides, herbicides, and that sort of thing. And that needs to be addressed. I don't want those going onto my property, and I'm sure Lisa doesn't want them going onto hers either. So that's why really a civil engineer needs to design a drainage catch system to contain those chemicals in the event that there's a spill. Just as I have done, I spent a lot of money and I followed the zoning bylaws as well as Lisa did. I have catch basins and I have a storm sector on my property to catch anything if there is a chemical spill. And all we are requesting that we've done it on our properties. We were requesting that he does it on his, especially in light of the fact that he is dealing with chemicals for treating driveways and chemicals in relation to the fertilization of plants and that sort of thing. It really needs to be addressed. I don't want those chemicals coming onto my property. I think that really does need to be addressed. He was asked to address it by the Conservation Commission, and he should follow through with that. The fence is still down. I'm worried because I have sometimes, children that come onto my property, see some of the clients, and the safety hazard. I don't want, for his sake and my sake, the kid to go onto his property and get hurt. So the fence really should be restored. The soil sifter is still sitting in the front driveway. You folks asked him to remove it because it's so noisy. It's still sitting there. It looks like a junk car. The dumpster's in the front driveway, and he doesn't have enough room to operate the business. They're always backing onto my lawn. I've got big ruts in my lawn, takes out my drainage, my sprinkler system. It doesn't make my lawn look good when they're backing heavy equipment over onto my lawn. It doesn't have enough space. So granted, he has cleaned up the backyard, so he has more room to put the equipment in. That's great. But there's a lot of issues with him running that business there. He has made an effort to try and clean it up, but I'm concerned that, it's not really, it doesn't feel like it's appropriate for this neighborhood. But hasty fence really shouldn't have been permitted in there. It was very noisy and it went on for 10 years. And we had to put up with that noise and disruption. And it's difficult to rent my property when I've got that type of activity going on right in the front yard. If he cleans it up and he puts in a good fence and puts in a proper drainage system and that sort of thing, that's fine. But it needs to actually happen. This has been going on for almost a year now. He's been there for 2 years, and I see very slow progress. That's all.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about that fence ever since you came here. What's the problem with that? Why can't you just fix it?
Down. It's down. There's like 6 sections down, and it's right on the front part of my property. And this soil's been pushed through, and I think there's part of a dumpster sticking through it. And if children wander off of my property into his backyard, somebody gets hurt, liability could be a problem. So, we don't want to look into see all this his equipment and that sort of thing.
Oh.
And what's going on?
We've got to, we need to use a stick. I mean, if that fence isn't fixed by the next planning board meeting, I think we should request that the building inspector put a cease and desist order in.
Thank you.
We've been talking about it for 2, 3, 4 months now.
Could you get the fence fixed in a timely manner, Mr. Viano? Because there's no
Yeah.
frost on the ground. We all know that. If it is, it's an inch or two. So winter conditions don't apply right now.
Okay, yep, and I like I said, that's my plan for this week is we're up to getting to that, to get the fence fixed over there. And I would like to point out too, that past that fence is still the property that I rented, probably another 7 or 8 feet all the way up into the middle of that hedge because I went all the way back there and found all the property markers that were there. And I could see them from the property that I'm renting where the markers are. But though, yes, I can get those fixed. And also for the record, we never ever go on to Paul's property. We don't have any reason to. If what does happen, I've seen it before. I've seen it on my cameras. People mistakenly drive into my driveway and then to go to one of the back building on Paul's property, and they cut across his lawn there. And there's really nothing I can do to stop that. I've tried to, but there's really nothing I can do. And in reference to our soil sifter, that's actually for sale, and I had somebody that's supposed to come and look at it. So that's what we're doing.
Well, hopefully it goes away soon. It's very unsightly. It looks worse than a junk car. And it's sitting right out front. I mean, that's my opinion anyway. I assume the planning board got my letter that Lisa and I sent you folks.
Yes.
Okay, you've had a chance to review it.
Okay,
That's all I have to say at this point.
okay. So you need to have your attorney recommend some kind of an engineering firm to do the drainage study. Get the fix fenced pronto, please. Because we don't want to keep coming back. We're only going to be coming back for one or two more times. And then, to everybody's comment, this has been going on quite a while. And you should be able to take care of these things within a timely manner at this point forward. You really have a list of things that you need to get done. And what would we like to see for another continuance?
I want to see proof that the fence is fixed in 2 weeks, by 2 weeks. I mean, are you gonna do the work? You're gonna put the fence up, Steve, or you're gonna hire Pasty Fence to do it? That's a joke.
Nope, I'll do it. That's reasonable. 2 weeks. I'll email a picture to Mr. Dwyer once it's all set as well, so you can share that with the rest of the board.
What type of fence are you planning on putting up? Plastic?
Just what's there. I'll just so it all matches. I'll just go continue it straight down with what's there.
Well, it's weathered, isn't it?
That fence is weathered, yes.
So are you saying you're gonna put a new fence in, or are you just gonna patch it?
I would just put new panels where there isn't panels.
Okay.
Tell you what, I
Okay,
will put this on the agenda for the 16th for we'll call it a status report or a
okay,
status conference, not a continuation of the public hearing.
okay.
And then I would suggest that maybe we move, continue the public hearing to Tuesday, February 6th.
Okay,
And that will allow time for a visit to the Conservation Commission and at least a discussion with the Conservation Commission. Obviously, they're not going to be, when did you say they're meeting?
On Tuesday, I think.
On Tuesday, the 9th.
Next Tuesday. Okay.
And your lawyer is always welcome to come to these meetings, okay?
May I add that I have wetland maps in reference to my property, the topographical maps. When my property was, when I applied for all my permits, and I'd be happy to share them with him. And I'll give the conservation, any conservation people, permission to come onto my property to do their, whatever they need to do to help facilitate their judgment and their inspection in reference to this. Okay,
I would invite Paul to share that with the planning board, so we don't have to dig through our archives.
yeah, you folks, about 19 years ago, when I put my permit in, you folks have a 7-8 pages prepared by Berkshire Design, and it clearly spells out all the topographical lines, the wetlands done by my wetlands guy, and everything that was turned in and approved by the town of Hadley. So you folks have that in your archives, but I'd be happy to share them with you folks if you need them.
I
Okay,
believe you sent some pieces of it in. I'll tell you, our office has been moved 5 times. We don't have an office, which is why we're meeting on Zoom, and our files, some of them have been scanned, some are in storage that we have limited access to. So in the short run, we'd appreciate if you have anything electronically that you can share with us. That would be very helpful.
I'll see what I can do. I have hard copies, and I'd be happy to drop off hard copies.
You know, if you have a hard copy, we have a large format scanner.
Okay,
So if
You
you
can loan it to us.
I'll be happy to drop those off at the town hall. And then if you
drop it off at the town hall and put it on top of the mailboxes on the first floor with a Post-it saying it's for the planning board.
Okay.
And
Just,
I'm
and if
happy
you
to help out.
email planning at Hadley MA when you do that, Paul, that way we can get them scanned and get them back to you quickly.
I'll just give
actually-
you the copies, that's all.
you know, to make it a little clearer, maybe Kayla, are you in all the time now?
Yeah, I'm there during business hours, so you can drop it off in my office and I can scan it and email it to everybody
That would be
if
great.
that's better.
Yeah, that would one less step. We're getting used to having people to work with. It's one less step for things to go wrong. Kayla's office is on the 2nd floor.
I've been there.
Okay,
Great, I'll bring them by to her then. Very good,
Thank you, Paul.
thank you.
Lisa, anything else you want to add?
I think we've got
No, I think-
continuance, and in 2 weeks, get a status report on the fence and just where you stand on getting some professional reviews of the various topics we talked about, Mr. Viano, okay?
Well, let's make it clear. We don't want a status report. We want the fence fixed by in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Okay?
Yep.
We want it fixed, and if it's not fixed, then we're gonna ask the building inspector to put a cease to desist order in, because this is going on too long.
okay.
I was asking Lisa if she had anything to add.
I think she said no.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good luck.
You,
We'll talk to you in 2 weeks and see you again in 4.
very good.
Okay. Okay, for getting back to zoning articles. So it appears that although there's some concerns, more or less what has been distributed is generally acceptable. Got to straighten it out and make it a little bit clearer, take away that the fire chief can have specific requirements. We'll do all that. What other articles do we have for the annual town meeting, Bill? Do you remember anything else?
I don't think there was anything in particular that we were looking at.
Okay,
I just want to go back to what Mike was saying, that as I understand it, it says if we allow solar panels, then we allow the storage systems. And if we allow storage, if we allow solar panels in a aquifer protection district, that's a whole different ball of wax than the potential risks of a storage system. So I wonder if we could, if not prohibit storage in the aquifer district, could we at least limit it to the smaller size in those sensitive, environmental we need our water every day.
I agree.
okay.
There's probably economies of scale with these things, aren't there, but Jim?
No, yeah, I mean, right now I've limited the energy storage to 5 megawatts. Right, yeah, 5 million watts, 5 megawatts. And that's
And-
any, if you would use, so, facility. So you're thinking that we should try to go for a smaller,
Well, I mean, I would prefer to not have any, risk of chemical storage or anything in a aquifer protection district, but I guess my thought is, I think I raised the whole thing on this quarry because it was right next to the residential street there, but in the end, I don't remember one resident joining our meeting to complain. So, on one hand, you could say no one cares, but I think they will
Well,
care if
yeah.
something happens. So I think I'd like to see where they have the voice to say, I don't want it in my backyard or.
I think that's the nature of politics in Hadley, or community participation. That's, I think, why we're here, to ask the questions.
To protect, in that
Mark,
case,
to protect
Woodland
the
Drive.
public from themselves. And the whole thing about taking cores, if you took a core, and Jim said it's gonna cause more problems than it before, that's not the case. If you take a core, it's gonna show you that you got a problem that already exists. If there's no problem when you take a core, then it means it's not porous and it's not permeable.
I don't know. That's kind of like having a raincoat and then putting a pin through it.
When you take a core, you cement it up. That's what you do. You don't leave it open.
I don't want to get into hydrogeology discussion here because none of us are suited for that.
No.
I am.
Well, I took
I'm not a
Geo,
PhD, but I know something about geology.
I took
unfortunately.
Geo 11 too. It was colloquially known as rocks for jocks.
Exactly. I was
Yeah.
afraid to bring
Well,
that up.
I
Joe.
never called
You're
it that. I
right.
thought Pete Foose was incredible, and so was Jerry Brophy. And a guy named Ed Bell taught historic geology, paleontology, some people call it. And that's what we're really talking about here. What's the geologic history of this valley? And it's incredibly complicated. Incredibly complicated.
That is absolutely correct, and that's why I have concerns about poking holes in the bedrock just to see. Because
We're not gonna put it in bedrock. We want to see where the bedrock is.
I think that's more of a
difference.
burden than just saying
Okay.
keep it outside of what we've already identified as an aquifer recharge.
So the issue that I'm sort of worried about with our tinkering with some of this is the state is clearly signaling they want it everywhere unless the town can prove that it would be bad, as in prove it would be bad, and not just say, we wish it wasn't over the aquifer, because that might be bad under some circumstance. I'm not sure that's going to fly
Well,
with the current administration.
And I would argue to them, you're speaking from Boston, who gets your water from the Quabbin. We get our water locally. So you may not have aquifer districts in a lot of your towns out near Boston. So listen to our concern because we have a different situation. That would be my response.
I think Mark is right on. I mean, the HAC Commission, that's the Housing Advisory Commission, is an indication that they're just bullying towns, local towns, to do what they think is necessary. But I think this is a legitimate concern, and I think we have a legitimate responsibility to address it. And if they shoot it down, then I think we have to address it. I don't think we should assume that they're going to shoot it down, because even they probably do have a conscience at times.
Well, I agree. And you saw that picture of that boat of lithium batteries on fire that was on the way to Anchorage, Alaska that I sent you. Did you not?
Yeah, that was in the news.
Yeah. Well, the whole, I think this going the battery route, this is my personal opinion, is lunacy. And you can quote me, Mr. Merzbach.
I'm pro batteries. I'm good, but just not.
I don't
over-
think any of us
Water.
think that energy storage in batteries is a great idea. However, the state is saying thou shalt not pass a law that prevents such storage. So
Well,
we're trying to address that.
the court said that. The state hasn't said it. The legislature hasn't said it. Have they?
No, no one has said it.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
No, that's,
Well,
the
the Attorney General
legislature-
has said that.
and the legislature has said it. They have said, basically they created a carve out for solar that is akin to the Dover Amendment.
But this is, again, this has nothing to do with solar. This has to do with Eversource painting themselves in a box. This is where they want us to allow them to put battery storage. It has nothing to do with solar.
We're not saying it has anything to do with solar. We're simply saying that the legislature and the Attorney General has said that you cannot prevent energy storage systems.
Jim, what town do they shoot down?
Tewksbury
Wendell.
most recently.
Wendell it was shot down for different reasons. But
They
what,
banned it completely.
they
There was
banned it completely, right?
Somebody passed a zoning bylaw that said you can't put battery storage. And the Attorney General shot that section of their zoning bylaw down. Says you can't do that.
In what town?
I don't know the town's bill. Joe, I'd have to look.
I think it was Wendell.
I think it was Wendell.
I think you're right.
And I think we have that. I think the guy who is doing the proponent for the project shared a couple of letters with us.
So, I'm not doing it because I think it's a great idea. I'm doing this to try to put some controls in so that when energy storage tries to come through, we will have something to guide us. Because right now, if they don't, and they come in and they steamroll us, they're just gonna put it where they want, how they want.
Well, what happened with us just allowing it in industrial areas? All of a sudden, we've gone from talking about industrial to blanket.
When they see how small our industrial area is, they may say that that's too restrictive.
But you're projecting, Jim. You don't know. If it's too restrictive, then we rewrite it.
We really don't have a lot of developable land left in the industrial districts.
Right.
I'm
Well,
just looking
you-
at the aquifer.
Well,
The
if
aquifer protection is a legitimate concern, and I think if it was ever brought to court, that you could prevail, because that was a significant item about 15 years ago about aquifer protection. So,
oh, if we don't have, if there's limited amount of developable land available in the industrial district, let somebody buy something that's developed and redevelop it. That's how commerce works.
I would be
If this
interested.
is a better use, then use it for batteries and not say a hotel motel.
I would be interested in knowing how Hadley stands compared to other towns with what percentage of aquifer protection
I'm on Zoom
you
now.
know, consumes our developable land. I'm wondering if we're at the higher end of, whereas other towns may have less aquifer protection, and so we might have an argument to be an exception. But anyway, I'm not trying to cause Hadley the cost of defending
That's how much aquifer protection district Hadley has in the pink.
right. So it's 45%. And then you also have river setbacks, right?
And so the batteries, proposed battery storage in the gravel bank is to the east, excuse me, the west of the aquifer protection area, correct?
I doubt it.
Let's see if we can.
West.
It's
In
close.
the aquifer district.
So in our industrial district, part of it is Route 9. This is Hampshire Mall, Mountain Farms Mall, half of Hampshire Mall, and half of Industrial Parkway. And what isn't there is already built. There's so we don't have industrial land.
No,
We don't have any that's functional except for maybe just a little hair in there. Now, let me see if I can figure out where.
Well, from the Amherstown line westward, from Route 16, from the intersection of Route 116 and Route 9, I think 1,500 feet from the Amherstown line westward is zoned industrial. All
That's-
the way to the Amherst Sunderland town line.
Okay, I'll double check that in a second.
is there any chance that the
However-
aquifer protection district
Well, of
is
course,
too
but-
large?
But even then you could do it.
Well, are we saying that they can only do it in industrial? Because I thought you said they can put storage wherever solar is allowed, and I'm just
Well,
saying, fine,
that's
wherever
that-
solar is allowed, except in the aquifer protection.
That
That's what
was-
we're- Mark, that's what we're discussing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Mike's
Oh.
concern. Put it in
Right.
industrial. We don't have it.
But
I'll
what
bring-
about the AR that's outside of the aquifer protection? That there's AR zoning, there's, you know, all that.
Yeah, where the proposal in front of us is in the aquifer, definitely. It's
It
right
is. Yep, yep.
And
I mean, I agree. If we say the industrial, it has to be in the industrial, which I thought we just were scrapping, but by saying that it could be wherever solar is allowed. I agree that if you restricted it to just industrial and said not in aquifer protection, then that is being overly prohibitive. But I thought we were not restricting it to industrial. I thought, as I read that draft, it said wherever solar, you know, you can put solar in your backyard, as
Yeah,
Jim said, you know, and he could have one in his backyard.
That's what we're trying to distinguish here, Mark. Where
Yeah.
do we want to limit it? Where do we want to limit it? That's what we're all talking about here.
well, solar is not limited. You can put a solar array wherever you want to, as long as it comes before us.
We're talking battery storage. Where do we want to restrict battery storage to?
I was okay with what you wrote, that, you know, or whoever wrote that it was wherever solar was allowed. And I was just saying, but not in the aquifer protection. That's what I was suggesting, not saying that it had to be, you know, I know a year ago I said industrial, but that's very restrictive. And then when you overlay that with aquifer protection, then yes, I think the state would hang us out to dry, say you've made it impossible.
So do we want to distinguish not in the aquifer protection district, every place else where solar is permitted?
That's what I propose.
I would second that.
I think that
I think that's
combined,
good.
I
Yeah,
think that combined with Jim's efforts to have the 110%, you could even say 150%, you know, do you think it's gonna get rained out or something? You know?
Well, that 110% mark is based on,
That's standard oil tank, right?
no, it's based on a chemical industry. That's what the standard spill containment is. So I'm trying to base it on some kind of a standard as opposed
Yeah.
to just put a number out there. so
Right.
that we have a basis to stand on in case questions are raised.
No, that's the standard that you have under any
And,
residential
and
oil.
even there's a thing in there about that environmental liquid basically needs to be drained on a basis of when it accumulates.
Yeah.
Some kind of a maintenance program.
Right, yep, I saw that.
All right. So going back to the question, do we want to not permit energy storage in the aquifer district?
Aquifer, that would be I would move if we have to vote on it.
And
I would agree with Mark.
Okay,
That
let's
was
do, okay,
second
Mark has made a motion to take battery storage and prohibit it in the aquifer district. And Joe seconded it, that correct?
correct.
All right. Any other discussion on that one? Everything else seemed pretty good on that article that was written up. Okay. In favor of the motion, Mark,
Aye.
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
me, I'll go along with it too, unanimous. Very good. I'll take that and make that change, and then I will draw up the motion in the article form, which is going to be, try to make it as clear as possible. Because the way the solar bylaw is written, trying to incorporate it to the solar bylaw without rewording the entire article take a little bit of effort, but I think it's going to be doable.
Now, do we want to also extend the ban on battery storage to,
Residential.
to solar fields that are in the aquifer? Because we don't prohibit a solar field in the aquifer, and we have been allowing battery storage in conjunction with solar fields.
I will write up the article. I agree, yes, we do. Battery storage,
It's not grandfathered, right?
there's a few there's only, I think, 2 that have it, and we will prevent them in the rest of them.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with solar panels over the aquifer protection, just not the energy storage.
Yeah, I think in order to be consistent, we have to go that route.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, is there already battery
There-
storage in
and Jim
the
just said there are
aquifer
2.
protection?
Well, the battery
storage.
there's battery storage on the ones behind Mountain Farms Mall, but I don't think that's in the aquifer.
No,
Right.
I don't think so.
I don't think there's battery storage up off of Huntington Road,
No,
and I don't think there's battery storage on the field behind Goulet's farm.
I think there is battery there, but that's out of the aquifer.
Oh, that's not?
It's,
The aquifer goes about halfway through Hampshire Mall.
No, not that one. The one that's behind Mountain Farms Mall off of a mill closer to
Oh, though that I think those might, but I don't know if they have batteries there.
yeah, I don't think there's battery. I think the only batteries might be in the one behind Mountain Farm. I mean, Hampshire Mall.
Yes, I think so. And
And
those
that's
should
not
be
an
out of the aquifer.
Right. Okay. I know, talking to Mike Spankinable, he's not as concerned from a fire hazard view of the big commercial energy storage. He's got a bigger concern of people putting battery storage in their houses.
Yeah.
Because right
Right.
now, they've actually, under the new building code, also the just a couple of kind of interesting comments on the new building code, that depending on your type of house construction, if you have solar batteries, you need to have a sticker on your meter that says you have batteries. And there's also a thing that is coming to be fruition, that if your house is built with trusses, you need to have something on your house that signifies that. Because house truss, your roof truss construction is not as strong as the older style
Stick frame. Yeah.
frame construction.
Hmm.
And when you have a fire in your attic, or fire, if that's the case may be, the roof, a trussed roof is more likely to cave than one that's built under the older style, for lack of a better term. timber
Yeah.
frame.
The older stick framed. Yeah.
So anyways, okay, I will make those changes and get them out to everybody for review and hopefully be able to get moving on it.
And also, I would recommend that you send the past 15 minutes of discussion to our congressman so they can figure out how to iron out some differences in a friendly manner.
Who would that?
What? But we're not, you mean we want to have as much action as the Congress does here? But we got something done, Joe.
I know. You're right. Right.
There's no political leverage to this anymore, okay? It doesn't make the headlines.
Well, Mark, I believe you're up for re-election this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know when I have to file papers to run again.
I believe you can take papers out almost today.
Oh, okay.
She has papers available early in January, and the filing dates, I don't know what the filing dates are. So, I have nothing else.
I have nothing
Mark,
else.
I think you're the youngest member of this board, aren't you?
I'm the baby. I will note again, I don't know if anyone's working on our webpage, but we do not have, we used to have the information you just mentioned with all of our names and when we were due for re-election, and that page has disappeared. It hasn't been there for a couple of years.
That is a very hot topic around town hall.
Okay.
Not just ours, but the whole website maintenance is a matter of concern.
It should be a full-time job. Spending
Okay.
your tax dollars.
Does
But I
anybody
think
else
it
have
is
anything?
important for transparency.
I could talk to Jennifer Sanders James about updating the website with the current planning board members if you'd like. She's the one with access to the pages, and she could give me editing access, and I can add you all if you want.
That's exactly what we should talk about that.
Okay.
That's what I'm calling it a hot issue.
Okay.
And it's SKI, not SKY, okay? I don't have my name up there. I changed it, but it disappeared.
Does it have a Z or an S in it?
Well, it depends if you live in Northampton or Hadley. If Hadley, it's an S.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, boy. All righty. Does anybody else have anything? No. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Happy New Year. I'll second.
Second, see you.
Second,
I'll be
all
up
in
there
favor?
next week.
Aye.
See you later. I'll bring you
Aye.
coffee. Bye.
Meeting is history. Thank you.